Developing news tonight. Multiple local and federal law enforcement agencies are investigating ritualistic sexual abuse, also human trafficking of children all over Utah. Fox 13 News investigative reporter Adam Herbets has been following the story and takes a closer look.
Well, the Utah County Sheriff's Office opened this case in April 2021, but according to our confidential sources, they are not starting from scratch. Here's what the department is willing to share so far. Reports of ritualistic sexual abuse and human trafficking involving children in at least these three areas: Utah County, San Pete County, and Juab County between the years of 1990 and 2010. The Sheriff's Office has not released any other specifics. However, we have learned some of the subjects of this investigation are high-profile individuals.
We're just being as careful as we can before we toss names out any given.
All right, there you go. That's an intro to the story that I'm just looking into over the last day or two. It's just breaking news from the state of Utah. It involves the Church of Latter-day Saints, the Mormon Church, at least to some extent. And it's about ritual child sex abuse and trafficking and cannibalism too, according to a district attorney who came out and said in advance of any charges being levied against him that he didn't eat babies, that he's totally innocent, that all these accusations about him eating babies are totally false. So you guys are going to have to see. I'll show you what there is out there in the news about this. I'm just going to show you as much information as I was able to find about it so far. These news agencies, local news agencies in Utah, have apparently been looking into this case for months already. But the news was just announced this week when the police came out and said that they're looking for more victims to come forward. They say they already have multiple victims testify or giving information to them, which corroborates other reports. So they have reports of ritual child sex abuse and trafficking and possibly cannibalism that is apparently being corroborated between various sources, and as is normal, at least one of the people who's talking about it is being called totally mentally ill and crazy. So I have to show you everything that I've found so far about this story. I think it could turn into a real story. It sounds a lot like a Franklin Credit Union type of situation. And I'll also, after talking about this story, retouch on Hampstead, which involves ritual child sex abuse and trafficking and cannibalism, which I covered before on this channel. And then just as a bonus, I will tell you what happened to me the last time that I looked into a child sex abuse ring, allegedly, in Hampstead, England, and what happened to me as a result of that, or maybe having to do with that. And that's talking about gang stalking and things that a lot of people think are crazy and don't happen. So, and that's an exclusive story, which I can tell you. So that's going to be the whole show. I'll try to keep it as brief as I can, try to cover on all the points that we have so far, which isn't much so far. I've tried to get information. There have been multiple press conferences. I can't even find one of the press conferences yet. So I'm just looking into it. It seems like it might be legit. Some people are already saying, oh, QAnon this or QAnon that, because it does involve apparently ritual child sex abuse and high profile figures, none of which, except for this one guy who announced himself, most of the so-called high profile subjects in this case are not known, at least by me and at least by the general public, but may be known by these reporters who apparently have been digging through documents for months already. So, and is there reason to be worried about these reporters, considering what happens when people look into satanic sex cults? So, including what I'm going to say happened to me. So, That's what I'm going to talk about today. Okay, I'm your host, Nathan Stoltman. This is Lift the Veil. I put out a podcast today that's just a podcast. The easiest way to find it is at Substack. Go to lifttheveil.substack.com. That's the easiest way. You can also support my work on an ongoing basis by becoming a paid subscriber there. And every day the podcast of the show goes out, and then the video version goes out for paid subscribers. So it's a great way to put out content. lifttheveil.substack.com, and then you can check in the links beneath the video for what other promotions are going on. I don't want to talk too much about ads when I'm talking about child sex abuse. So here I'm going to go into it. Okay, I already played you part of that one clip. I'm just going to go over different news stories. Okay. And then comment on it. He said that they've been looking into a child sex ring. The guy, and there are prominent figures involved. So far, the prominent figures haven't been named. Even one person who apparently has confessed, who had charges dropped against them, that person even is not being named. But they point out that one of the people involved has already confessed, apparently. Even though he confessed, charges were dropped, apparently. And now they may be revived, and it may involve even more people. So let me show you. This is the local news. This is from Fox 13 in Utah, and this is off somebody else's channel. You can see the Stop Pedophilia symbol. This is from a Patriot channel, Unplugged Patriot. But I went to dig up as much as I could about this. This is one news report on it. I already played the opening of it. So I'll keep playing this news report, and then we'll go into the other news reports on it so far. This story involves someone who may have faked their own death, which is crazy. And I'll show you that. And it may be true that he faked his death, although the person who supposedly is the person says they're not the person and that the authorities have it wrong. A person that supposedly faked their own death is among the people making accusations about some of these other people. So it's pretty wild. I'll play the rest of this news clip.
How individuals.
We're just being as careful as we can before we toss names out. Any given individual, it's the way it is. I mean, the chips fall where they are, and we follow them.
One of them was a therapist who was previously charged with similar crimes against young female family members, but not convicted.
Okay, hold on one sec. Let me see if I can fix this. I had a little problem with the video there.
One of them was a therapist who was previously charged with similar crimes against young female family members, but not convicted.
You can see on the screen it says, "I am sorry for raping you." These are the documents which I don't have, which apparently news organizations have. And there's apparently tapes of this therapist who another person has come out and accused of sexual abuse. Apparently there's tapes of this therapist admitting, "I'm sorry for raping you." That's what just came up on the screen. "I am sorry for raping you," it says. So that's apparently part of the proceedings. This therapist who didn't get charged had previously confessed and still didn't get charged.
Family members, but not convicted. For the past few months, I have also been reviewing police reports and body camera video related to that case. Watch and listen how one of the victims describes his interaction with the therapist who he met through a referral from the church.
Hypnosis was a big part of it. He told me that from the very beginning.
He said from the church. He means from the LDS church, that being the Mormon church. The Mormon church, which I'm not going to say it's a sketchy religion, but it does have a lot of Freemasonic elements, and it is based on something that's absurd, basically, these golden tablets and John Smith and stuff. It is a crazy religion, but I'm not going to say there's anything wrong with Mormons in particular, but it is kind of a crazy religion. They have secret handshakes and magic underwear and stuff like that. So, and I think it's okay in some circles to make fun of Mormonism, but I don't want to make fun of Mormons, but this does involve the LDS church. When he says the church, he means the LDS church.
I think that was his main technique. Dr. would say, "Do you want to be healed of your homosexuality or not?" And the answer was yes.
Do you think this time it will be different?
I do think it will be different. I think in part because I have some information that can connect some dots.
That man says he hopes sharing his story will empower more victims to come forward. As part of our investigation, we continue to review records related to potential targets of this investigation. We will bring you updates as we confirm more with law enforcement.
Criminal charges, we believe it'll get to that point, but we just haven't gotten there yet. The sooner, the better. We don't want to let anything sit longer than is necessary.
The message at this point for any victims or anyone with information is to please call the Utah County Sheriff's Office. Reporting in studio tonight, Adam Herbets.
I want to ask these reporters to share information with me. They put up the phone number to call the cops, and they're asking for people to come forward. So this is a real case. If it's a real case of satanic child sex abuse, and Satanism and Lucifer are mentioned in some of the documents, which you'll see in some of these videos, documents which I still don't have access to, but which they show some of. So this is Fox 13 News investigating. They say they've been looking into it for months. Here is another report. This is also from Fox 13 News. Let me see if I can explain to you what happened. The sheriff's office came out asking for victims to come forward and help them with their investigation. Then an attorney, Utah County attorney, this is a story right here, says Utah County attorney addresses cannibalism allegations. So this guy, David Levitt, came out and held a press conference where he apparently revealed allegations against him, which the police had not yet revealed anything from, which apparently were accusations leveled at this guy, David Levitt, by another person who supposedly faked their own death and is overseas in the UK. I'll show you that guy. So this person, who you'll see some clips of, and I haven't been able to find the entire press conference from this guy, but you will see some clips from this guy rebutting the claims and saying that the person accusing him is a crazy person. He has called on, this Utah attorney has called on the sheriff to resign just over asking victims to come forward and not even having said anything about David Levitt yet. He says he's calling for the sheriff to resign over this because he's not guilty and he definitely didn't eat any babies, which apparently is what he's being accused of.
Good evening, everyone. Tensions flying between the Utah County Attorney and Sheriff Mike Smith.
County Attorney David Levitt asked the sheriff to resign today, even calling for an investigation into his activities.
Fox 13 News reporter Chris Arnold has what both men have to say today. He joins us live from the Utah County Sheriff's Office with more. Chris.
Well, Kelly, Bob, this all stems from an investigation into allegations of a ritualistic child sexual abuse case, that is in child sex trafficking, that took place over 2 decades from 1990 through 2010. Now, that case spanning 3 different counties here in the Beehive State. Now, County Attorney David Levitt said the case involved a woman who he says was tragically mentally ill and made claims of sex abuse against 15 people. Those are allegations Levitt says were found to not be credible, causing the case to be dismissed. Now, Levitt said during a press conference this afternoon that he and his wife were named in those allegations, saying the two were guilty of cannibalizing and murdering young children.
If it can be demonstrated that the sheriff has used his office for political purposes, then there is no evidence of that that I would bring to court. But if an investigation can demonstrate that, then I am saying the sheriff should resign.
Well, in our report last night, we told you one of the targets of the investigation was a therapist who was previously charged with a series of sex crimes against young female family members. The Utah County's Attorney's Office dropped charges against that therapist.
They're showing on the screen all the different things the guy said. So this is definitely suspicious. is this guy was accused before, this therapist, who you saw the guy who's also accusing the same therapist of sexual abuse, who went to him to cure him of his homosexuality, was hypnotized and then sexually abused by this guy. Apparently, the same therapist is on tape, and that's what they're showing you on the screen, but not playing the tape recording. They're showing on the screen what he apparently said, which, I am sorry for raping you. And then he also said, I'm not saying it isn't true. I'm not saying someone in my body didn't do it. So those are all the things he supposedly said. This therapist, which was accused of abusing family members, and then the charges were dropped. And now this other guy, David Levitt, this attorney, who says he was also accused in that original case, I guess, of, you guessed it, killing and eating babies. He's saying that person is tragically mentally ill, but apparently at least this therapist had admitted to some sexual crime
against young female family members. The Utah County's attorney's office dropped charges against that therapist without prejudice, and he was never convicted. Now, just about 2 hours after Levitt took the podium asking for Mike Smith to resign, the sheriff also speaking out, saying that what Levitt said was disturbing. He said Levitt often contradicted himself when he was speaking earlier today and even possibly tainted their investigation.
I will tell you right now, I think that this is probably the best way we could use public funds, is to investigate child sexual abuse. I take exception to any victim who comes forward and is characterized as tragically mentally ill. How dare you?
Well, Sheriff Smith came out and said he will not be resigning from his position, nor will he be disciplining Sergeant Spencer Cannon for what he says simply doing his job, saying he won't play that game with the county attorney. Now, the sheriff said their investigation is ongoing right now and that they were contacted by no less than 20 people since they posted about this crime yesterday. As of right now, they aren't releasing any names of the victims or the suspects. And you know, it's worth noting that both Levitt and Sheriff Smith are up for re-election for their respective positions later this year. Now, when asked about this, the sheriff shot down any notion that the information released yesterday was released for political gain, saying that it came to a point in the investigation where other victims were out there. For now, live in Spanish Fort, Chris Arnold, Fox 13 News.
So all they did was come out and ask for more victims to contact them. And then this attorney said, oh, they need to be fired. They need to resign right away, just because they came out and asked more victims to contact them. So this is the story of the attorney calling for a review over the child abuse investigation, and this is the one that shows some of the documents, which I haven't had a chance to see yet. So let me play this, which talks about this attorney more. This is from, who is this from? And I'll include links to all of these videos. What I'll do is on Substack, underneath the podcast, I'll put all of these videos and links to the different articles so you can see it for yourself. Let me play this one. This one has evidence in it, which I'd love to get my hands on, which is actual documents which seem to make the accusations, and it talks a lot about Satanism and other things. So let me play this clip.
Top prosecutor and sheriff sparred publicly today in a bizarre series of news conferences.
County Attorney David Levitt called for Sheriff Mike Smith to resign if, as he suspects, an investigation Smith announced this week is politically motivated. KSL investigator Daniela Rivera joins us now to explain. Danny?
Well, the Utah County Sheriff's Office announced yesterday they're investigating claims of ritualistic child sexual abuse from decades ago, and they called for victims and witnesses to come forward. They did not release any names or point to specific cases, but today the county attorney did. David Levitt shared in a news conference that he is named in a victim's statement from a 10-year-old case.
That the Sheriff's Office is using its position for political.
Do you think the guy looks guilty? I guess that's what we've come down to, is do you think the guy looks like he's involved in ritual sex abuse, because he's the one who came out and said it's definitely not him and he's definitely not eating babies and stuff. So this is him, David Levitt. And he called this press conference just in response to them asking for more victims, said the sheriff needs to resign immediately.
Gain.
Claims outlined in a 151-page victim statement from a 2012 case against a therapist named Utah.
Okay, here's where it shows some documents, and it talks about Church of Satan, the devil, Lucifer, doctrines of this satanic church, experiences with this to destroy people's faith. This is what I can read from what they're showing on the screen.
Utah County Attorney David Levitt and several others.
And there's more. Oh.
Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson.
Sorry about that.
Top prosecutor and sheriff.
I'm getting to it. I'm getting to it again.
A vague announcement calling for victims of ritualistic sexual child abuse between 1990 and 2010 to come forward. Now, Levitt calls that effort a political attack.
Why is it occurring 7 days before the ballots drop in my election?
Levitt now calling for an investigation into the sheriff's office, accusing law enforcement of leaking.
There's more on the screen. It says, Redacted and I were taught the doctrines of this satanic church, I guess. It says, destroy people's lives in general. It says that Satan loved us. I need to get my hands on these things. But this appears to be what they say is a 151-page document with accusations, which is what this guy is refuting.
The victim statement.
And if
there it says high-ranking family in Satan's church. Redacted taught us from a very young age something we're born into our high-ranking family in Satan's church.
there is such a link, then I call upon him to resign.
And taking aim at the woman who named him years ago, over and over repeating this claim about her mental health.
By that tragically mentally ill woman.
How dare you? These are victims of crime who have mustered the courage to come forward, and this is what we call them, is mentally ill.
Utah County Sheriff Mike Smith holding his own news conference a couple hours later.
Okay, so now you guys have seen that. I still have one more news story. I know we're going over a few of the things, but this is just the information that's available right now. I wanted to show it to you. Here it says, victims' claims mirror details in case of ritualistic child sex abuse investigation. This is by KJZZ14, another local news channel, which says that 2 News has been investigating this story for months, obtaining police reports and visual evidence related to the case and poring over it ever since. They say one of them was this therapist who was named in the documents who lost his practice. And he is not named because he never was charged with a crime. The charges were dropped, even though he apparently confessed. This is another news story. This has more information about it. Let me play that
and
for
more
you.
Breaking news that we've been following today. Utah County Attorney David Levitt has called for the resignation of Utah County Sheriff Mike Smith and an investigation into his activities.
Now, Levitt is accusing the sheriff of misuse and also taxpayer and county resources. This all stems from an ongoing investigation into ritualistic child sex abuse. It's something you don't hear often. I know I haven't heard it before. They're saying the cases span from 1990 to 2010. Sheriff Smith addressing those calls for resignation earlier this afternoon.
Yeah, we do have a live team coverage for you tonight. Wendy Halloran and our 2 News investigative team been looking into this case for months now. First, though, Jeremy Harris is in Utah County right now. Jeremy, a lot of developments in this case today.
Yeah, so the Utah County Sheriff's Office, they have a criminal investigation of what they call a ring of child sex abuse that happened in Utah in the 90s and early 2000s. Today, though, we heard from County Prosecutor David Levitt, who said he believes the sheriff is out of line, called for his resignation, and here's how the sheriff responded. Do you think he should resign? He wants you to resign.
You know, I'm not going to play that game with him. I'm going to do my job, the job that people elected me to do, and I'm not going to stoop to kindergarten games with him.
Now, the Utah County Sheriff's Office never named Levitt as a subject of their investigation into this child sex abuse ring. But Levitt this morning called the media to his office to hold a press conference to say that he believed this investigation was improper and that he believed investigators here at the Sheriff's Office were looking into what he called a debunked claim involving cannibalistic murder of children and sex abuse from years ago. Now, the county attorney also said that he and his wife, County Attorney Levitt and his wife, were named in that investigation 10 plus years ago. He said it's totally untrue. The case was never there was no conviction ever carried on it, and he says the Special Victims Unit in that case didn't even try to prosecute the case because the claims were so outlandish. Now, the Sheriff's Office says that the county attorney has their facts wrong. They say that County Attorney Levitt's case that he's referring to is not necessarily the focus of their investigation here. They say they have multiple victims, and the sheriff went as far as saying that he believed what the county attorney said to the media today is potentially going to compromise their investigation ongoing of that child sex abuse ring in Utah, Juab, and San Pete counties. The sheriff also saying today the FBI is involved in this, as well as several other local law enforcement agencies. He says it's far broader than the case that the county attorney is speaking to. Sheriff says he has no plans to resign. The county attorney says he wants an independent investigation. He says he believes that this is politically motivated because it's the week before the election, of which Levitt is right now up for re-election, as is Sheriff Smith. So he says there's political legs behind this. But again, the Sheriff's Office saying they never brought David Levitt into this investigation publicly, and that the county attorney has his facts wrong. We'll have more about the fight between these two top county leaders coming up tonight on 2 News at 10. Back to you.
Jeremy, thank you. Continuing team coverage for you right now. Chief investigative reporter Wendy Halloran has been investigating the story for months now.
There's a lot to take in here. Wendy's obtained police reports and visual evidence related to this case. She's been poring over them ever since. Wendy, what have you found?
Well, Mark and Heidi, one of the people named in the documents is a disgraced therapist who lost his license to practice. We are not naming him. In 2012, he was charged with sex crimes against young female family members. But the Utah County Attorney's Office dismissed the case against him well before David Levitt ever took office. I sat down with Brett Bluth, who says he met this therapist through a referral program from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. To be clear, Bluth is not accusing David Levitt of anything, but rather this former therapist. It's important to point out that police reports I obtained in Bluth's case mirror the allegations of ritualistic sexual abuse of children in painstaking detail that triggered the Utah County Sheriff's investigation. Bluth was referred to this therapist to discuss his homosexuality. He says the therapist used hypnosis and ultimately sexually abused him during office visits.
I was there as a very vulnerable young man, very desperate to be free of my sexuality. He removed his clothes and he would say, "I'll show you that I'm not. You're afraid I'm a woman." He had diagnosed me with multiple personality disorder due to systemic ritual sexual abuse as a child. Basically, some extreme forms of abuse had happened as a child, splintered my personality out of self-preservation. That was a lie. That convincing me that those horrible things had happened was how he actually molded me to do what he wanted.
Now, Bluth came forward to law enforcement around 2013. The therapist's license was revoked by the Division of Professional Licensing. This was shortly after the criminal case against this therapist was dismissed without prejudice by the Utah County Attorney's Office. Now, Bluth is hopeful his interviews with law enforcement will help their investigation. He also hopes that sharing his story will encourage more victims of this ritualistic child sex abuse group the Utah County Sheriff's Office is investigating to come forward. Mark and Heidi.
Wow, can you believe it? So that's the story. I mean, they're actually talking about ritual child sex abuse. So this is the fact that they're seeking tips on it. It's right here. It says Utah County seeking tips on quote unquote ritualistic sex abuse. Now this is where it gets really weird, is the guy David Levitt, who you saw, who looks kind of guilty, but who knows, says that he totally didn't kill and eat babies. He said he was accused originally by this other guy who let me see if that's in here. He was accused by this other guy who faked his own death. Excuse me. Faked his own death to escape rape charges. Apparently, that guy, so some guy apparently faked his own death to escape sex charges and then came out and accused that David Levitt, who was after him, of these things. Basically, leaked information about David Levitt, this guy who apparently faked his own death. Nicholas Rossi is who he goes by. This is where it says. Levitt says the accusations were first leveled at him by Nicholas Rossi in an online post. Rossi is a man who was arrested in Scotland after allegedly faking his own death to escape a Utah rape charge from 2008. So this guy, Nicholas Rossi, got arrested in Scotland and is being pursued by David Levitt. So he has beef with David Levitt because he's being pursued by David Levitt, and he apparently released some information about him from these old allegations, which included David Levitt among the allegations, and said that he was involved in, killing and eating children, apparently. So this is that guy. So this is where it gets into the death faker thing. This is that guy being interviewed.
Out on bail, awaiting.
This is that guy being interviewed and his story. And you can decide whether he really is a guy that faked his own death. Apparently he's American, but he's got Irish or Scottish accent. And he says it's not him. But other people do say it is him. So this is a guy that apparently has put out some of these allegations, that apparently faked his own death.
His next extradition hearing.
Who are you?
I am Arthur Knight, and this is my wife, Miranda Knight. And unfortunately, there are those who would claim differently.
Are you Nicholas Rossi?
No.
Are you
That is
Nicholas
completely
Alaverdian?
insane. Absolutely not.
Are you Nicholas Brown?
Yes.
When asked why he changed his name from Nicholas to Arthur, he replied because it was associated with bad childhood experiences in Northern Ireland. Miranda, who claims she married her husband in Bristol 2 years ago, says she was there when Police Scotland arrested her husband in hospital as he recovered from COVID. Arrivals to court for bail hearings were in a wheelchair. An oxygen mask remained on throughout this interview at their Glasgow home.
I nearly died. I nearly died, and we are terrified. How can I be a flight risk if I can't even stand?
The electric wheelchair is not a prop. There's no faking of this illness.
This is a case of mistaken identity.
You say you've never been to the United States?
Never in my life.
They claimed in court you were identified from tattoos.
That is not true. There is no evidence whatsoever that there are tattoos, and I've shown that to news reporter after news reporter.
In this interview with a US network, he did agree to roll up one sleeve.
It was up further, right? And have you had any tattoos removed?
The man wanted in America to face a rape charge is known to have multiple tattoos.
He's done quite a masterful job of hiding himself from the law.
See, there's the guy, David Levitt. So that's him. That's the guy that now says that he's not guilty of these crimes. This is the guy that's after the death faker.
Prosecutors in Utah say Nicholas Rossi, also known as Alaverdian, is believed to have...
Does look like him, though, right? That's supposedly him. It does look a lot like him. And some other people say it is him. So it could be that he did fake his own death.
Used at least 16 different aliases.
16 aliases? No, typos.
These are very serious charges that this man faces. They claim this man faked his own death to evade those charges. Did you fake your own death?
I'm... Sharon, we're sitting having a conversation. I've never been dead to anyone.
After so many years, I know him inside out. I know my husband does not have tendencies as a rapist.
He is going to be needing a very large team on the pitch to try to say that I am a rapist, because not only are we terrified because this is a vicious lie, but we are also incredibly disgusted by the fact that we now have to live our lives in a secretive way because my wife can't even walk down the pavement to get a pint of milk. And it continues.
Some people would say you're saying it a secretive way, but you're now speaking to various media outlets, including us. Why? What is the purpose then of this interview?
The truth needs to be known.
A section of this interview was shown to Brian Coogan, who almost adopted a teenage Nicholas Aliverdian. Both were involved in local politics in Rhode Island, with Aliverdian becoming a critic of the state's child welfare system.
I'm 100% sure that it's Nicholas Aliverdian. I will bet $50,000 cash on it, and I'll put the cash up. That is Nicholas Aliverdian. And the more that he says it's not him, and the more that he tries to play a game, the more I want to come to Scotland. I have 5 boys. He's almost like my sixth child. You know when your child's lying to you. I mean, his own stepfather came out and said that's him.
You're sure that's him?
Well, that's my son. There he is, right there. I know my son. I just know my son. That's definitely Nicky. He's older, but it's him.
It's a game of chess that Nick's playing. And at the end, he's going to be checkmate out. Guaranteed.
The case returns to court for the next stage of extradition proceedings in April and May, when the prosecution say the issue of identity will be resolved. Sharon Frew, STV News.
So it might be a legitimate death faker that got caught, and then he found out accusations about the guy going after him, David Levitt, and put those accusations out into the public, which apparently involved accusations of cannibalism and trafficking children. So that's what's going on. What a crazy story. That's pretty much everything that I have about it right now. It reminded me of another story I covered a long time ago, back in 2017, which happened in Hampstead, which involved cannibalism and ritual child sex abuse. And so I have clips, or I have a little bit of a documentary I found about the Hampstead case, and all of those videos which I originally produced on YouTube were eventually taken down, and I think everything about the Hampstead case was taken down. This is off of a website that's kind of off the beaten path. Conspire.tv, conspire with a Y, conspire.tv this is on, and I'll leave a link to this video and I'll play some of it, and then I'll tell you what happened when I covered this case. So this case involved ritual sacrifice, cannibalism, etc. So let me play some of the clip from those kids. This is from Hampstead, England, I think it happened in 2012.
Who are you going to help us to catch?
All the people. Papa, Mr. Williams. They work with the social services.
And what did they do to you?
They do sex. They touch each other. They touch me and Gabriel. They have plastic willies. And they stick it in our bottom.
Who does? Who sticks it in your bottom?
Papa, social services. Everybody does. All of them.
Who? Does your mother do it?
No.
Do I do it?
No.
Who does it then?
Big church, and we use it for sex, eating baby, drinking baby's blood. We sacrifice the baby, we do sex to the babies, we throw when we're dancing with the skulls after the babies are dead.
What skulls?
The baby skulls.
Before?
Yeah, from before. We put it on.
Where do the baby skulls come from?
They come from the baby, and we dance with the skulls.
You what?
We dance with the skulls in the church.
What skulls?
Skulls of the baby.
Pardon?
Baby skulls. The skulls of the baby.
You dance with the baby skulls? Yes. And who kills the baby?
Papa, me, Elisa.
Who kills the babies?
Papa.
And what, he gets you to help him?
Yes.
Shoot.
What did the police say to you that you'd been accused of?
they'd said, I'm okay with what they said. It's more that it had come from my children. They'd said that I'm the leader of a satanic sex cult paedophile ring, and there's 100+ involvement in this, including CAFCAS, the police, social services, the school, and I'm the leader of this. And I mean, I'm sat across, and they're recording this, and I'm sat across from the table from the police officer asking the questions, and I don't know how to answer that.
So he tells us to hold the hand with a knife, and then he holds his hand on our hand, so then he cuts the baby's head off. And then he puts it upside down, and then we drain the blood.
And then what they do?
And then we cook it, and then we drink the blood, and then after we burn it down to the skull. My dad...
Okay, you guys got it? So that was some of the accusations. I did a long series, multiple parts covering it, including their entire police confessions, and going over Ricky Dearman. And you notice Ricky Dearman wasn't crying real tears, but still all the same, Bombard's body language, who once made a video attacking me, confirmed that Ricky Dearman, the alleged leader of the satanic cult, the one the kids called Papa, she confirmed that Ricky Dearman was being truthful in his interview, even though it didn't necessarily seem that way from my body language analysis. So the weird thing about the Hampstead case, and the weirdest thing that's ever happened to me covering anything, had to do with the Hampstead case. When I was covering Pizzagate, weird things started happening to me. First of all, I went to the day I went to the Pizzagate rally, I was attacked from the stage by David Seaman, and it was pretty traumatic. It was because I had made a video about him, and that's a long story, because he was sort of a charlatan in the Pizzagate movement. He came out and attacked me while I was there, and then a bunch of people surrounded me. That day, a woman contacted me, a woman who said she had a lot in common with me. We started talking to each other. It developed an online relationship. That woman encouraged me to talk about the Hampstead case, okay, which I did. At the time, the rumor was you couldn't talk about the Hampstead case, like bad things would happen to you. That's what people seem to say, like you can't talk about the Hampstead case. Bad things will happen to you. Well, so this person who approached me and developed a relationship online told me to cover this thing, and then bad things started happening to her, apparently. And then I also started being trolled in different ways. The Hoaxstead people, there are people who write a blog dedicated to debunking people who say that the Hampstead case is a real case. So they would write articles about me. There was a fake Twitter account created. They would take screenshots from my stream and share them with people. People were being contacted who followed me on Twitter, and information was shared with them, negative information about me. People would say that I was dangerous and that I was a really bad person. That was happening on the side. This was the gang stalking element. Then the relationship with this person was bad things started happening to her, which I know for a fact at this time didn't really happen. But the idea was that bad things were happening to her because I was talking about Hampstead, and she was playing a role where she was trying to destroy my life and also get me all screwed up about this case. I mean, I can confirm that this person was not a legitimate person because there are people that know that there are people who were involved with the gang stalking that have confessed to it. And said they were a part of it, said this person was not actually, my girlfriend or whatever you want to say of an online relationship. that this person was actually meant harm to me. And I know for a fact there's a fake story about breaking her jaw and stuff. And then once I figured out, and somebody contacted my psychiatrist, said I was talking about satanic ritual abuse and that I was crazy. And it was an entire campaign, probably maybe the craziest thing that ever happened to me in my whole life. But this person in particular came into my life and started telling me these stories which weren't true, and then tried to destroy my life, and also sent the cops to my house because I said, "Oh, sorry, I was crazy when I said you weren't who you said you were." And then she used that to do or somebody used that to do a wellness check. So the cops showed up at my house asking if I was crazy. So my psychiatrist was contacted. The cops were sent to my house. All of these things happened, and people would call into my show and make vague threats to me. When I was in the UK, they were saying they knew what my location was, and they were writing articles about me. And people that were friends with Ricky Dearman or connected to the Hampstead case were coordinating with other people who just didn't like me at the time, which was true also. And they were coordinating to gang stalk me and destroy my life and maybe try to get me to kill myself or something. So, and that really happened, and there are real people who participated in it, who felt bad afterwards, who admitted to being a part of it and said that was what happened. So that was way over the top, a way over the top crazy part of my life, and it had to do with the Hampstead case, which I believe, I did a lot of research into it, which I believe was mostly true what the kid said, even though the story has been thrown out. And the kid said that all of these adults had tattoos all over their body and in their private areas, and nobody was ever asked to show their tattoos. The children had physical, there was evidence of physical sexual abuse on the children that apparently was written off. Ricky Dearman eventually appeared to get custody of his children again. So that case, even though it seemed legit, got debunked, or however you want to say it. It just never progressed anywhere. The court declared that everybody was innocent in this case, where these children had very believable stories that corroborated one another. And but it was a difficult case. They were hit by Ella's boyfriend while they were giving the confessions to encourage them to talk or something. So it's complicated because of reasons like that. But it did seem like it was a legitimate case of, actual child sex abuse, trafficking. They said social services were involved. They said all these higher ups were involved. And this case in Utah, I'm interested in seeing the evidence, and it's interesting to note that they're saying the stories corroborate with one another between maybe 20 different people, they said. So I'm interested in this case in Utah, and I'm going to follow it because I believe, the satanic panic, they said, and they came out with they said it was a satanic panic when there was actual legitimate evidence of satanic cults back in the 1980s. They came out and said it was the satanic panic. They came out and they invented something called false memory syndrome, which isn't a real thing. They started something called the False Memory Syndrome Institute or something, where they said that all of these memories that people had of being ritually abused were false, even though that a lot of them were true, and it got all swept under the rug. There was the McMartin preschool case. There was the case of the Presidio. This goes into serious stuff, and now they're talking in this case of satanic ritual abuse of children and trafficking, and it involves higher ups. It reminds me of the Franklin Credit Union scandal and other cases. So that's what's going on in Utah. I'm going to keep following it. Thanks for listening to this episode. If you want to follow all my content, do it with Substack. lifttheveil.substack.com and become a premium subscriber there. The podcast is going to go out onto that as soon as this show is over, and I appreciate everybody for tuning in. Thanks for the tips over on Rockfin. I appreciate it. Thanks Anyword, and thanks L. Taylor. I appreciate you guys, and we'll see you at the next one. All right? That is what it is.